Hellfire, Part 1. The buzz of cicadas, chiggers, and grasshoppers droned across the night air. The sound mixed with the croak of frogs, a country lullaby that always put him to sleep. He stared at the ceiling passively as an occasional car's headlights lit up the room. A bug zapper mounted on the front porch, sporadically fried insects. The smell floated through the open window. Nick had traveled a great distance today, after a revival, to preach at yet another church. He had never heard of it, and he knew most of them across the state. They had promised to pay well. The life of a traveling preacher was constant movement, and a charlatan is sure to be discovered with time. His style of proselytization was apocalyptic. Some places in Appalachia had changed little religiously since the Second Great Awakening. Threaten them with hellfire and then promise the soothing balm of salvation. The 1-2 punches broke the most ardent of sinners. All begged for forgiveness of sins both real and imagined. Smiling, he thought, most of the sermons he could not even recall. The words spoken so much had lost any meaning if they ever even had any. Most of what he knew of evangelization came from his father. A lecher and drunkard, oh, but how he preached to the people. Nick had even seen the man persuade a sick old woman to give up her last dollar. He had, at least, grudgingly paid for the college courses in public speaking for him. Nick and his father forged their relationship on mutual contempt for others' gullibility. Every mark sold with sneering disdain. His father had a special name for his preacher persona, and believed it should be separated from the rest of his life. A great idea, and Nick had adopted one. Isaac William Hope was the moniker he developed for preaching to the masses. Nick Mudd is a lot less religious and impressive. However, it suited a scoundrel perfectly. Mr. Hope for salvation. But Mr. Mudd sought the wholehearted search of damnation. Everything labeled a sin is always more pleasurable. Every night he said the name like a prayer and wished to be Hope, not just in visage, but in his heart. The absence of faith left a hole never to be filled. The void loomed, and alone in the dark, self-loathing ate away from him. He lived faithlessly and deceitfully, deceiving the faithful or lost souls. Laughable, and he had laughed about it a lot. It had taken a long time to find anything but heartbreaking. Nick lay on the bed. The memory played over again mockingly. When he had lost his religion, it had taken away from his very core. He often thought of that day, and each recollection became darker. Soaking in the tub, his mind drifted. Steam rolled upward, clouding the small room with vapor. Hot water relaxed muscles, and thoughts flowed more easily. He had watched television, catching a favorite. An old action movie villain had laughingly proclaimed something vital, though dismissed at the time. In this world, bad guys can win. Nick smiled at the idea, and a thought materialized from the cynical depths. Good or evil men don't ever really win. Merchants, businessmen, or politicians who make their little deals always prospered. They won, grew fat, and bartered shamelessly with all sides. Righteousness became a point of view. God or devil, it all came down to money, which felt heartbreaking, not grand in design. He had laughed, then cried, and lost his religion. The thought had left nothing in its wake, but a faithless man who sold salvation. A mockery. Nothing but cast-off superstition. However, men needed ritual, and men craved repetition. Nick closed his eyes for a moment, pausing. He knew all the little tokens were in place, but a compulsive part demanded them to be rechecked. The urge was resisted for a moment. Obsession would not be denied. He felt silly and sighed, but it would only take a second. Both silver coins are still set under the bed, polished and perfectly placed. One for luck, the other for prosperity, and both compulsion like prayer, a plea for good fortune. Relieved, he checked the cross, which was ceremoniously hung on the wall first. He checked its angle again. The black cross was perfectly straight, and he could not sleep even if a little askew. A ward against evil prayer could no longer promise. Reassured, the boredom quickly returned, and he checked the clock. It hung beside the cross. Proximity troubled his eye, but no other placement felt acceptable. They reminded him of each other. Time fleeted till judgment, an eventuality and perhaps only real truth. Nick hoped for an afterlife, but he had given up looking.